Let's not go to Hollywood. I don't want to know what goes on there because I already know too much about what goes on in Hollywood. It does not seem like a hospitable place for normal people. And as a result of that, neither are the cinemas where your Hollywood movies are broadcast because Hollywood movies are not made for you anymore. That's right, you watching this. The normal person who, like us, just wanted to play my video games and also just wanted to enjoy my movies in peace.
Yeah.
Those films are not made for you anymore. And I thought I would do this because, excuse me, the latest Spider-Man film is out. Ooh, that's right, the new Spider-Verse film, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And I'm sure you have no care whatsoever about any of this, which is
almost
perfectly reasonable.
Maybe it's just the amount of like online stuff I have to deal with. But I'm starting. Is this transgenderism or something? Is this where this is going?
How did you guess? How did you guess?
I didn't know anything about this. Just to be clear, that's not.
You just immediately were able to pluck out of thin air. This is about trans, isn't it?
Okay, cool.
This is about men dressed as women because it always ends up being about that. Because
identifies a spider.
I don't know what people watching this video thought of the Spider-Verse films. I actually quite enjoyed the first one when it came out in 2018. But this new one is one that I'm not interested in watching at all. And you can tell me if you have watched it, if it's actually a very good film. The animation, I'm sure, like the first one, is going to be excellent, etc., etc. It might have characters and a plot that I could connect with and care about. But I don't care because the filmmakers have made it very, very clear that they oppose me ideologically and hate my worldview and everything that I stand for. Therefore, I'm not going to give them my money. And I think this is an approach that most people should take with all films that they consume because, hey, it turns out that Budweiser, that Bud Light boycott, actually worked a bit and got them to turn it around. So if people started to do such things with these massive multi-million blockbuster films as well, perhaps we can get similar results.
Well, the one upside to a recession is that companies are a little bit more worried about money.
It does help.
So
it does help. There's the silver lining there. If everybody's poor, then so are the people screwing you over, hopefully. Yeah, there you go. Before I get any further, I think I will point you all in the direction of the website where you can find some new work that Josh has done, a new video on his contemplation series where he's talking about Victorian manners and etiquette, because if there's one thing that you can learn from being on the internet for too long, it's that, my God, we all need to be a bit more polite to one another. So perhaps with this you can go back to a more old-fashioned style of manners and etiquette, and we can all just be a little bit more cordial with one another. But, moving on. So the new Spider-Verse came out, and it's a massive smash hit. It's an enormous smash hit. It's made, I think, where does it say here, $120.5 million in the first weekend, and that's going from Thursday, Friday through to the end of Sunday as well. It's the open to the second best Thursday preview ever for an animated film. It was $17.35 million. Only The Incredibles 2 did better in its first weekend. Super Mario Brothers movie opened on a Wednesday and did not have previews, according to this Rotten Tomatoes article. And it's also the sequel, the original one, Into the Spider-Verse, was the lowest grossing Spider-Man film since 2002 when the first Tobey Maguire classic came out. Are you aware of those? Did you watch those? You must at least be aware of Tobey Maguire's hideous cry face, which has become a complete meme.
I might have seen it.
Did you watch the latest ER video where he's talking about the Little Mermaid?
Yes.
You know the part where the Spider-Man is trying to wrench her eyes together? Yeah. That was Spider-Man 2.
Okay, yes.
If you ever watched that. It's meme-worthy films, all three of them. So I'd recommend you watch those because I'm sure you could have fun editing some clips together. But no, it's doing very well. And if we go to the next link as well, it's not just doing well financially, it's doing well critically. It's got a 95% from critic reviews, but critics are scum, and I will put them to the side because I do not care what they have to say. But typically you can tell the quality of film by the audience score as well, and the audience score here is very positive, even more positive than the critic score, because it's 96%.
Weird.
Is it?
I don't know. Is this going to be another case of the verified reviews versus the real reviews, or is it actually good?
I've heard a lot of people say that it is actually a very good film, and this is across the political spectrum.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're aware of this, but Rotten Tomatoes, Carl was showing me, has done this weird thing now where they segregate the audience score into verified and all audience.
Oh, really?
So they were hiding the real score for the Mermaid movie, for example.
The
verified users. It was like
Little Slurmaid.
Yeah, the Little Slurmaid. It had 90% verified users loved it, but if you checked out all users, it was like, no, this isn't good.
Of course. So, well, that's interesting, and thank you for letting me know. Hopefully that...
Did you come up with that?
No, that was from the ER video.
Oh, I forget,
You already watched
yeah.
it. There are a few things I pick up and retain up here from those videos, but that was too good to leave behind. That was too good for it. But once again, as much as I respect that people want to go and watch films for just the entertainment value, that's something that I can always respect. This is not something that I am going to be watching because, once again, there have been many things that I've seen before I even saw before the film even came out, from the previews and from screenshots that people had released, that made me understand that this film was not made for me. And if I did go to this film, while maybe 95% of it would be something that I enjoy and could get into, that 5% the 5% left over would be spitting in my face. And I'm not going to take that. I'm just honestly not going to take that, because if the film shows me that it hates me and is not made for me, is made for other people, well, it's not really deserving of my money. So this is one that I saw where Indian Spider-Man points out this, this is where the British stole all our stuff. Claps. Stunning and brave, everybody. This is clearly pandering to an audience that is not me.
Our stuff.
Yes.
We didn't
yes.
exist as a country before we came there. But...
No, you didn't, and also you probably weren't looking after that stuff.
Plus, I mean, like the diamond, for example, that they keep whining about, it's from Afghanistan.
Well, I mean... So when we return it to them, the Afghans can immediately turn around, return our stuff, please?
Yeah, it's literally that stone toss meme of the Indians killing each other.
Yes, as it always turns out to be. There was also this part of it, which I saw advertised up into the previews, where there was a pregnant black Spider-Woman, which was seemed very on message, very on point for the message. Black women are going out and doing it for themselves, even when they're pregnant. Which I found this entertaining interview, because I also found out this character is Jessica Drew, who in the comic books is, yes, pregnant, but is white. So they took an already silly concept, that of woman with superpowers who's pregnant, and you can make all of these excuses you want. Oh, it's a cartoon. Oh, you don't have to apply it to real life. It's not supposed to make sense in the way. Oh, it makes sense in the universe because of blah, blah, blah. We know that the depictions of fiction in films and other such places influence people's understanding of the real world. You already get people saying, why can't police just disarm these people? Because they watch a TV show that's not realistic, where they see a police officer disarm someone with a bullet that they ricochet across a room and just happens to hit their hand, not causing any damage to the hand, just knocks the gun out of their hand. You see people thinking that
female police officers won't be a problem, and then check out footage from London of female police officers trying to arrest
because
anyone.
You've got all of these films pushing girl boss action women who can just stand up to an army of men just by doing roundhouse kicks and breakdancing on the floor while flailing their feet around. People watch these things and they think, oh, so that's how the real world works, because people don't go outside anymore.
I mean, people in cities who are leftists.
Yes.
I would narrow it down to.
And people don't even understand how dangerous violence is in general these days. They don't understand that if you get a punch in the face and fall over, crack your head on the road, you might be dead.
Also, for me, it's less about that, but just if you can tell it's obviously motivated by ideology, it's just boring.
Well, that's the thing. I can tell that this would be motivated by ideology for some of the other things that have come up in this, but also one of the three directors, because there are three directors, because it's a big animated feature, took 5 years to make, so they needed a lot of people, is a man called Kemp Powers, who wrote for Star Trek Discovery, which is a very political, very leftist television show. He wrote a stage play called A Negro by Choice, and has been awarded numerous, I think 4 NAACP awards.
Did you read the plot on that? Could you summarise it real quick?
No, I just looked at the name and said, that's all I need to know.
I'm going to give that a read.
Yeah, go on, give us a read, and we can have a nice story time reading of A Negro by Choice. Well, I just saw all of that and put it together. Okay, this is a explicitly political actor in the sorts of films that he'll be making. Because I think one thing that the right and centrists as well need to understand is that the left, when they talk about how media manipulates and spreads particular narratives, are actually right, and they can do this explicitly or implicitly. But when you're making a film, the sorts of narrative and depictions of the characters will have an effect on, especially when you're consuming media passively. It's a bit different when you're playing a video game because you're actively involved in it. But when you're consuming media passively, that's one of the most vulnerable times that you have to having the message shoved down your throat. And you need to be aware of this, as many people have become much more aware of it. But the actress who was voicing this character of Jessica Drew said she described Drew as the true essence of a superhero, thanks to her status as a crime-fighting future mother, even explaining that it challenged her notion and her beliefs regarding pregnant women being fragile. She is the true essence of a superhero in the fact that she is this mom fighting crime, and also she's superhuman in that way. So I love playing her, and I hope other mums appreciate her too. And I have to say, she challenged my notion. My sister and friends who have been pregnant over time, sometimes I'm a bit too fragile with them. Like, oh, you can be doing this? Are you going to be working up until this point? And they're just like, yes, I'm completely fine. I can still operate. Which, have you found much?
I can't find anything called a Negro by choice.
They're censoring it. They're
Maybe.
keeping it away from the public. They don't want us to know.
There are some other...
White Google has all of the results censored.
There are some other book names, though, that came up from black authors, which are...
Well, he's a playwright, so it's a stage play.
Yeah, I did look up play, but what came up was none of that and instead a bunch of books, which I can't read the titles of, so...
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're from black authors, though, so...
Are we there? But once again, like this, it's a cartoon. You're not supposed to can think that it's real, but people will allow it to change their perception in the first place, especially idiots. And this is going hand in hand with other things that I've been seeing. Did you see The Last of Us Part 2 when that came out?
You mean the video game?
Yes.
I've done my thing where I declared that fan fiction and just ignored it.
That's fair. That's probably the best thing to do.
Yeah.
But in that, there is a pregnant woman who is part of an active militia force who goes out, and she's quite heavily pregnant. She's got a big bump, and she's out there doing it for the girls, doing it just as good as the men, showing the men how it's done. It's like, no, heavily pregnant women should be at home, taking care of themselves, because they've got a baby in there.
We're in a post-apocalypse situation. You know what we should risk? The pregnant woman.
Yes, the future of our civilization and even our species.
What is it with the whole turn a pregnant woman into a soldier thing?
I don't know. And I even saw a video posted on Twitter the other day of a quite heavily pregnant, probably 6, 7, 8 months pregnant woman who was absolutely jacked, doing deadlifts and doing push cleans with a heavy bar. Excuse me, while she was pregnant. And I just thought, that's not good for the baby.
I don't know.
That's not good for the baby at all. What's going on?
Do you remember, I think I told you, the German military actually got sued at one point because their new tanks didn't have proper seating for pregnant women and therefore violated equality law.
Why do you want pregnant women manning tanks in the first place?
They obviously never were going to, but the equality law said that they had to have equal access. So if a pregnant woman wanted to mount a Leopard 2 tank and go and fight in Ukraine...
You know, if the Ukraine war gets that bad, I think maybe a peace deal is what we should be considering, not throwing pregnant women in tanks.
Well, it really is the old, the weak, and the young.
Oh my god, it's so ridiculous.
Scraping the barrel here for soldiers.
But in the same article, she even references tennis superstar Serena Williams, who competed and played tennis while she was pregnant. And she said, I think Serena competing and playing tennis while she's pregnant, and all the women who do the extraordinary while they're pregnant and are sort of taken for granted in that way. So I thought this was a nice commentary. And I looked into this very quickly and found that, I don't know if it's as a result, but Serena Williams had complications and blood clots and almost died during her childbirth, so maybe she's not a role model to take advice from when it comes to what you should do when you are pregnant. Anyway, but it has been getting some other very positive reviews. There was this one where it says Spider-Man is more than a movie, it's a work of art, so you get people saying that, but then people have been noticing the other very obvious messaging in the film. What are you going to say?
Sorry.
Is it the chat?
Yeah.
Are they being cheeky?
Someone was saying, well, obviously the baby's manning the woman and the woman's manning the tank. Like Ratatouille or something? I don't know. Just that concept made me laugh.
All sorts of levers and cords down there.
New Ratatouille movie just dropped, boys.
Like, the baby's just got a little cord it pulls and the steam releases from her ears. Honk, honk.
Sorry, just the occasional thing in the chat is... funny.
You know, you've won me over. That makes perfect sense now. But there was this big one in the next where people started to notice even before the film came out that there was some imagery in the trailer that was a little bit on the nose. So, Across the Spider-Verse wants to protect trans kids, and that's a big deal. So in the trailer, there's a character called Gwen Stacy who is an alternate universe Spider-Man. and
Okay.
it shows her bedroom. And on the bedroom wall it features trans pride colours and the words "Protect Trans Kids" written across them. She's got a "Protect Trans Kids" pride flag on her wall, and you can easily see it. It's a direct political statement and a brave line in the sand drawn by the folks over at Sony Pictures Animation. It's a small detail to include, but significant in its placement within the Spider-Man universe. Of course, young Zoomers raised in the age of social media, a Trump presidency, and Black Lives Matter are going to lean progressive. So it's just pushing that. These are the people these films are made for. If you're just a normal person who wants to go and enjoy a Spider-Man film, too bad. One way or another, implicitly or explicitly, this will get pushed in your face. And then there was this thread that quite blew up, and I can't actually access it myself anymore because I was blocked by the person who did it after I quote tweeted them. But I managed to get an archive link of it. This Leia Gothfox, who's a person who I would trust the opinion of, clearly, pointing out that her story is a trans allegory. The whole thing is done in the colours of the trans flag, and some people have pointed out, oh, well, that's just the colours of a costume. I'm sorry, this person is probably right. This person is probably right on some level, because if they felt the need, because it's not just the pride flag on her wall, her father is a police officer in the film as well, and in one shot that you can see, he has his badge, and it has a little trans pride flag above the badge as well.
Ah, so he's a British police officer.
Yes, pretty much. So, in all likelihood, as much as you can say, oh, well, the idea of having this two separate lives, these double lives that you're trying to navigate, and you don't want the family that you have to be aware of it to keep them safe, is part of superhero storytelling, it can also be taken as a part of this trans allegory, this idea, there's a part of my life I want to keep away from my family, I don't know how they would react, etc., etc. And given the explicitly political nature of certain elements of these films, given the way that it feels the need to put these details in the background, I would not be shocked if it is more intentional than some people want to give it credit for. I understand the desire to just want to sit back and enjoy your films and just have fun watching it. But sorry, the people making these films do not want you to do that.
Someone pointing out, well, what does that mean about Spider-Man with his red and black, though? Or red, white, and black?
I have seen people point that out as well. But, once again, I wouldn't be shocked if this is something they had considered. And any other takeaways you can have from the film regarding the other colour schemes would not have been as deeply thought about. Because also one thing is that in the comic books, the original Gwen Stacy falls off a bridge and breaks her neck. So if you're going with the trans allegory, that doesn't sound great.
Do we disavow the movie now?
That's up to you.
Presume so.
That's up to you. And Pink News picked up on this as well. Oh, is Gwen Stacy trans? Here's the evidence, where they just point out Gwen isn't the only Spidey who's been embraced by the LGBTQ plus community. Last year, Marvel revealed details about the origin story of its first ever gay Spider-Man, who made his debut in the 5th issue of the Edge of Spider-Verse comic book. This is an organised thing that they're trying to push. They want, you can see a better view of this image as well.
We found a multiverse where there's a million infinite types of Spider-Man, and the only two we found are to do with the LGBT lobby. Yet to find the Nazi Spider-Man universe where
there is a stone toss comic.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen that.
Have you seen the one where a Confederate Spider-Man is swinging? Now that I would be interested to see. I know this is only part 2 of a 3-part trilogy. Yeah. There's going to be a sequel to this coming out next March. So fingers crossed for the South shall rise again.
But even Rick and Morty did it in that one episode with the multiverse, where he reroutes and then he wakes up and it's in fascist universe where there's fascist Rick and Morty.
I don't remember that. Maybe that's after I stopped watching.
Oh, he gets caught and he's like, quick, I found this socialist in my bathrobes, kill him. No, he's get out of it. But
makes sense. And you had other people just whining on Twitter, just saying, like, oh, just let me have my pride. Even if it's not intentional, just let me have it. If trans and even cis fans have the right to say she's trans, even if the movies never outright confirm it. Once again, whether it confirms it explicitly or not, I do think that is overtly signalling to these kinds of freaks and weirdos, because the films aren't made for you anymore. The films aren't made for the normal person who just wants to go and watch a superhero film with his kids. The films are made for freaks, weirdos, outcasts from society.
I'm obsessed with politics and gender. It's like,
yes.
Okay.
And once again, for some reason, elements of the right wing and elements of centrists just can't seem to understand this or accept it, or just want to ignore it when it does happen, like this one. From The Spectator, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse dodges all the MCU virtue signaling. But it doesn't, though, does it? It doesn't. It has race-swapped pregnant Spider-Woman. It has trans flags and all that sort of thing everywhere. It may not explicitly have a character come out and give you a big speech about it. It may not be integral to the plot, but it does seem to be somewhat subtext of the themes that are going on in the film. I want to watch films that I can just enjoy and switch my brain off, but the filmmakers don't want to do that. All of these people all believe the same things, and they are all crazy, so that's all I'm saying here. Even Critical Drinker, if you watch Critical Drinker, he had a thread where he was talking about the fact that this was elaborating on a point from his pretty decent Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse review that he posted on YouTube, where he's elaborating on a statement that he made that of all of the characters in the film, Peter Parker, who is one of the only white men in it, seems to be being a bit demeaned and degraded by the narrative, portraying him as kind of a schlubby idiot who takes his brand new baby daughter into dangerous places with him. Very silly, but it seems to be something that other people are noticing, even if Critical Drinker overall was quite positive on the film. And outside of the realms of film as well, we can just see how these people think, because you didn't play Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4, did you? I don't think you've got a PlayStation 4.
I played a Spider-Man game on PS1 last time I played a Spider-Man game.
To be fair, the PlayStation 1 Spider-Man game was, pretty damn good. I will give you that. But the Spider-Man game on PlayStation 4 was pretty good. I enjoyed it. But a fringe element of the audience all decided to call it propaganda because Spider-Man, in trying to save New York City and help New York City, collaborates with the police. And despite the fact that this was a fringe, tiny element, just an itty-bitty tiny element of the entire audience of the game and nobody else cared, they decided that these were the people that they were going to listen to, and the developers have said, propaganda wasn't our intent. Spider-Man 2 devs have listened to criticism of the first game, particularly in how it represents cops. In a new interview, a dev makes clear that the team is aware that the first Spider-Man game on PlayStation 4 had been labelled as propaganda as soon as it launched, although said that this wasn't their intention. So this new game is going to have all of the propaganda elements removed from it because a tiny fraction of the audience read about it on Twitter, and therefore that's just where they're going with it. So at the end of the day, this is the audience that new films and new games are being made for, unless explicitly stated otherwise, or unless you can tell that a film isn't going to have those elements, then you honestly, as far as I'm concerned, you're best not going to see it, because these people don't like you, they don't like your worldview, they hate you and hate your worldview, and you should spend your money accordingly. If you want to go and see a real film, you should go and watch something that is devoid of this sort of thing. Like, for instance, last year I enjoyed the films Banshees of Inisherin, which was excellent, and also The Northman, which was my favourite film from last year. Both of them are excellent and don't have any hint, as far as I could tell, of equity, inclusion, diversity, nothing forcefully inserted into a narrative where it wouldn't fit. And as far as I could tell, I've not done deep analysis of them, there was no subtext or subtle themes trying to convince me that I'm evil because I happen to be born ethnically English as well. So once again, Hollywood is not making films for you. The games industry, for the most part, apart from apparently the Aztecs developers who are happy to change when people complain.
They're Polish, so
they're Polish, so they're they've got their own views on things. So for the most part, these people are not making games for you and films. So spend your money accordingly.
if you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Contemplation series, this episode on Victorian manners and etiquette. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.